The salty breeze whipped through Zoe Morgan's chestnut hair as she stood on the deck of the research vessel, her eyes fixed on the horizon. At 24, she was the youngest marine biologist on the team, her presence a testament to her brilliance and determination. But as the ship cut through the choppy waters of the North Atlantic, Zoe felt a gnawing uncertainty that had nothing to do with the impending storm. "All hands on deck," the captain's voice boomed over the intercom, jolting Zoe from her reverie. "We've got a Category 3 hurricane heading our way. Batten down the hatches and prepare for rough seas." As the crew scrambled to secure equipment and retreat to the safety of the ship's interior, Zoe felt a presence at her elbow. She turned to find Dr. Marcus Hawthorne, the expedition's lead scientist, standing beside her. At 58, Marcus was a legend in the field of marine biology, his silver hair and weathered face a testament to decades spent studying the ocean's mysteries. "Best get inside, Dr. Morgan," he said, his deep voice barely audible over the howling wind. "This storm's going to be a nasty one." Zoe nodded, trying to ignore the flutter in her stomach at Marcus's proximity. She'd admired him from afar for years, devouring his papers and TED Talks long before she'd ever dreamed of working alongside him. But in the 3 months since joining his team, that admiration had grown into something far more complex and unsettling. As they made their way to the ship's lab, Zoe couldn't help but steal glances at Marcus. His tall frame moved with a grace that belied his age, and even in the face of impending danger, his blue eyes sparkled with an infectious excitement. This was a man who lived for the thrill of discovery, who saw each challenge as an opportunity to learn something new about the world around him. The next few hours were a blur of activity as the team worked to secure their precious samples and data. Zoe found herself working closely with Marcus, their hands brushing as they carefully packed away delicate coral specimens. Each accidental touch sent a jolt of electricity through her body, and she silently berated herself for her schoolgirl crush. He was her mentor, for God's sake, old enough to be her father. Any kind of romantic entanglement was out of the question. As the storm raged outside, the ship tossed violently on the angry seas. Equipment crashed to the floor, and Zoe lost her footing, stumbling backwards. Before she could fall, strong arms wrapped around her waist, steadying her. She looked up to find Marcus's face inches from her own, his eyes wide with concern. "Are you all right?" he asked, his breath warm against her cheek. Zoe nodded, not trusting herself to speak. They stayed like that for a moment, frozen in a tableau of unspoken tension. Then, as suddenly as it had begun, the moment passed. Marcus released her, stepping back with a slightly flustered expression. "We should, finish securing the lab," he said, his usual composure momentarily shaken. The storm raged for 3 days, forcing the team to abandon their research and focus solely on survival. Zoe and Marcus worked side by side, their shared passion for their work evolving into a deeper appreciation for each other's strengths. She marveled at his calm leadership in the face of crisis, while he found himself increasingly impressed by her quick thinking and adaptability. On the 4th day, as the skies finally began to clear, Marcus called the team together. "I'm afraid our expedition has been cut short," he announced, his voice heavy with disappointment. "The storm has damaged our equipment beyond repair. We'll be heading back to port as soon as the seas calm." A collective groan went up from the assembled scientists, but Zoe barely heard it. Her mind was reeling from the realization that her time with Marcus was coming to an end. The thought of returning to her lonely apartment, of no longer seeing him every day, left her with an ache she couldn't quite explain. As the others dispersed, Marcus caught her eye. "Dr. Morgan, a word?" he said, gesturing for her to follow him to his cabin. Zoe's heart raced as she entered the small room, acutely aware of Marcus's presence in the confined space. He settled behind his desk, fixing her with an intense gaze that made her knees weak. "Your work on this expedition has been exemplary," he began, his tone serious. "I'd like to offer you a position on my permanent research team. It would mean relocating to our institute in Hawaii, but I think you'd find the work challenging and rewarding." Zoe's mind spun with the implications. Hawaii, permanent position, working alongside Marcus every day. It was everything she'd ever dreamed of professionally, but the way her heart leapt at the thought of being close to him, that complicated things immensely. I don't know what to say," she stammered. It's an incredible opportunity, Dr. Hawthorne, but I need some time to think it over. Marcus nodded, a flicker of something disappointment crossing his face. Of course. Take all the time you need. And Zoe, the use of her first name sent a shiver down her spine. I hope you'll say yes. You have a brilliant mind, and I'd hate to lose you to another research team. The journey back to port was a whirlwind of conflicting emotions for Zoe. On one hand, the offer was a dream come true, a chance to work with one of the most respected scientists in her field. On the other, she worried that her growing feelings for Marcus would cloud her judgment, jeopardizing her career and possibly ruining the mentor-mentee relationship they'd built. It wasn't until the night before they were due to dock that Zoe finally gathered the courage to seek Marcus out. She found him on the deck, staring out at the star-strewn sky. For a moment, she simply watched him, struck by the quiet strength of his profile against the moonlit ocean. Penny for your thoughts, Dr. Morgan? Marcus's voice startled her from her reverie. He turned, a small smile playing at the corners of his mouth. Zoe moved to stand beside him, her hands gripping the railing as she struggled to find the right words. I've been thinking about your offer, she began, her voice barely above a whisper. Marcus remained silent, waiting for her to continue. The only sound was the gentle lapping of waves against the ship's hull. I want to say yes, Zoe continued, her words coming faster now. It's an incredible opportunity, and the work you're doing is groundbreaking. But, Marcus prompted gently when she trailed off. Zoe took a deep breath, steeling herself. But I'm afraid my feelings might compromise my ability to work objectively with you. There. She'd said it. The admission hung in the air between them, heavy with implication. Marcus was quiet for a long moment, his expression unreadable in the dim light. When he finally spoke, his voice was low and intense. What kind of feelings, Zoe? The use of her first name, coupled with the undercurrent of emotion in his tone, broke something open inside her. The kind that make it hard to concentrate when you're near, she said softly. The kind that have me dreaming about your hands, your voice, the way your eyes light up when you're excited about a discovery. The kind that I know I shouldn't be having for my mentor, but I can't seem to shake. She braced herself for rejection, for a gentle but firm reminder of the inappropriateness of her feelings. What she didn't expect was for Marcus to close the distance between them, his hand coming up to cup her cheek with infinite tenderness. Oh, Zoe, he breathed, his eyes searching hers. Do you have any idea how hard it's been to keep my own feelings in check? You're brilliant, passionate, beautiful, and so very young. I had no right to even think about you that way. Zoe's heart soared at his words, even as a part of her recognized the complications they now faced. What do we do? She whispered, leaning into his touch. Marcus's thumb traced the curve of her cheekbone, sending shivers down her spine. I don't know, he admitted. But I do know that I don't want to let you go. Not professionally and not personally. Their lips met in a kiss that was both tender and electric, years of pent-up longing finally finding release. Zoe melted into Marcus's embrace, all thoughts of propriety forgotten in the face of overwhelming desire. His arms around her felt like coming home, like a piece of herself she hadn't known was missing suddenly clicking into place. But reality has a way of intruding on even the most perfect moments. The sound of approaching footsteps broke them apart, both breathing heavily and looking slightly shell-shocked. We should talk more once we're back on land, Marcus said softly, reluctantly stepping back. Figure out what this means for us, for your career. Zoe nodded, her mind reeling from the events of the last few minutes. As she made her way back to her cabin, she felt as though her entire world had shifted on its axis. Whatever happened next, she knew things would never be the same. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of debriefings, data analysis, and stolen moments with Marcus. They agreed to keep their budding relationship under wraps until they could figure out the professional implications. But every brush of hands as they worked side by side, every loaded glance across a crowded room, only served to deepen their connection. It was during one of their late-night work sessions, poring over data in Marcus's office, that things came to a head. Zoe had been explaining her theory about a new species of deep-sea coral they'd discovered, her eyes shining with excitement as she gestured animatedly. Marcus watched her, a fond smile playing at the corners of his mouth. What? Zoe asked, suddenly self-conscious under his intense gaze. Marcus shook his head, chuckling softly. I was just thinking how remarkable you are. Your passion, your intelligence. It's intoxicating. Before Zoe could respond, Marcus had crossed the room, pulling her into a kiss that left her breathless. All the tension that had been building between them for weeks exploded in a frenzy of roaming hands and heated caresses. Zoe found herself perched on the edge of Marcus's desk, her legs wrapped around his waist as he trailed kisses down her neck. We shouldn't be doing this, she gasped, even as her body arched into his touch. Not here, not now. Marcus pulled back slightly, his eyes dark with desire but clouded with concern. You're right, he said, his voice rough. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have. Zoe silenced him with another kiss. I didn't say stop, she murmured against his lips. I just think we need to have a serious conversation about what this means for us, for our work. They did eventually have that conversation, staying up until the early hours of the morning discussing the potential ramifications of their relationship. It wouldn't be easy, they both knew. There would be whispers, judgmental looks, accusations of favoritism or taking advantage. But as the sun began to peek over the horizon, they came to a decision. What they had was worth fighting for. The next few months were a delicate balancing act as Zoe and Marcus navigated the complexities of their personal and professional lives. They were scrupulously professional at work, careful not to show any favoritism or undue intimacy. But behind closed doors, their passion for each other grew alongside their shared love for their research. It wasn't until the annual Marine Biology Conference in Sydney that their carefully constructed facade began to crack. They had been presenting their findings on the deep-sea coral, fielding questions from an eager audience, when a colleague made a snide remark about Zoe's rapid rise in the field. I suppose working so closely with Dr. Hawthorne has its benefits, the man said, his tone dripping with insinuation. Zoe felt her cheeks burn with a mixture of shame and anger. But before she could respond, Marcus stepped forward, his voice cool and authoritative. Dr. Morgan's work speaks for itself, he said firmly. Her insights have been invaluable to our research, and any insinuation otherwise is not only unprofessional but patently false. The room fell silent, the tension palpable. As they made their way off the stage, Zoe could feel the weight of curious stares following them. Thank you, she whispered to Marcus as they exited the auditorium. But I'm afraid we may have just made things worse. Marcus sighed, running a hand through his silver hair. Perhaps, he admitted. But I couldn't stand by and let them diminish your accomplishments. You've worked too hard, Zoe. You deserve recognition for your brilliance, not gossip about how you achieved it. It was at that moment, seeing the fierce pride and love shining in Marcus's eyes, that Zoe realized she was tired of hiding. Let them talk, she said, squaring her shoulders. I'm done pretending that what we have is anything less than it is. With that, she reached for Marcus's hand, intertwining their fingers as they walked back into the conference center. The whispers and stares that followed them were immediate, but Zoe found she no longer cared. She was proud of her work, proud of her relationship with Marcus, and no amount of judgment could take that away from her. The fallout from their public declaration was swift and intense. There were calls for an ethics investigation, concerns raised about the validity of their research. Zoe and Marcus spent countless hours in meetings with university officials and grant committees, defending both their work and their relationship. But for every negative reaction, there were supporters who recognized the genuine connection between them. Colleagues who had worked closely with them vouched for their professionalism and the quality of their research. Younger scientists, particularly women in STEM fields, reached out to Zoe to express their admiration for her courage in pursuing both her career and her heart. As the months passed and the furor began to die down, Zoe and Marcus found themselves settling into a new normal. Their work continued to garner attention and accolades, their findings pushing the boundaries of marine biology in exciting new directions. And their relationship, tested by the crucible of public scrutiny, emerged stronger than ever. On the eve of Zoe's 26th birthday, 2 years after that fateful storm had first thrown them together, Marcus surprised her with a midnight picnic on the beach near their research facility. As they sat on a blanket under the stars, the sound of waves lapping at the shore, he turned to her with a serious expression. Zoe, he began, taking her hands in his. These past 2 years have been the happiest and most fulfilling of my life. You've challenged me, inspired me, made me see the world through fresh eyes. I know our relationship hasn't been easy, that we've faced judgment and obstacles at every turn. But I want you to know that I wouldn't change a single moment of it. Zoe felt tears welling up in her eyes as Marcus reached into his pocket, pulling out a small velvet box. "I'm not asking you to marry me," he said softly. "Not yet. We both have so much more we want to accomplish in our careers. But I am asking you to consider a lifetime partnership, personally and professionally, to continue exploring the mysteries of the ocean together, to face whatever challenges come our way as a team." He opened the box to reveal a delicate silver pendant in the shape of a nautilus shell. "This is a promise," Marcus continued, his voice thick with emotion. "A promise that no matter what the future holds, my heart belongs to you. That I will support your dreams, celebrate your successes, and love you through every storm life throws our way." Zoe was speechless, overwhelmed by the depth of emotion in Marcus's words and the symbolism of his gift. The nautilus, with its perfect spiral chambers, had long been a source of fascination for both of them. A living fossil that represented evolution, growth, and the enduring mysteries of the sea. "Yes," she whispered, pulling him in for a kiss that was salty with her tears. "Yes to all of it. To partnership, to facing the future together, to loving each other through every high and low tide." As Marcus fastened the necklace around her neck, Zoe felt a sense of rightness settle over her. Their love story might not have followed a conventional path, but it had led them to a place of deep fulfillment and joy. The years stretched out before them, full of promise and possibility. There would be more challenges, of course, the realities of their age difference, the ongoing scrutiny of their professional peers, the inevitable conflicts that arise in any long-term relationship. But as they sat there on the beach, wrapped in each other's arms with the vast ocean stretching out before them, Zoe and Marcus knew that whatever storms lay ahead, they would weather them together. The following years brought both triumphs and challenges. Their research continued to break new ground, with Zoe's innovative approaches complementing Marcus's years of experience perfectly. They published groundbreaking papers on deep-sea ecosystems and the impact of climate change on coral reefs, their work garnering international attention and respect. However, their personal life wasn't without its hurdles. As Zoe entered her 30s and Marcus approached 60, the reality of their age difference became more pronounced. Zoe found herself grappling with the desire to start a family, a prospect that filled Marcus with both joy and trepidation. "I want to give you everything, Zoe," he said one night as they lay in bed, his fingers tracing patterns on her bare shoulder. "But I worry about being an older father. What if I'm not around long enough to see our children grow up?" Zoe propped herself up on an elbow, looking into Marcus's eyes with fierce determination. "Life offers no guarantees regardless of age," she said softly. "What matters is the love and wisdom you bring to fatherhood. Any child would be lucky to have you as their dad, even if for a shorter time than we'd like." It was a conversation they revisited many times over the next few months, weighing the pros and cons, discussing their fears and hopes. In the end, it was an unexpected discovery during one of their research expeditions that tipped the scales. They were exploring a newly discovered hydrothermal vent system in the Pacific when their submersible malfunctioned, leaving them stranded on the ocean floor for several harrowing hours. As they waited for rescue, oxygen slowly depleting, Zoe and Marcus held each other close, whispering words of love and reassurance. "If this is it," Marcus said, his voice muffled against Zoe's hair, "my only regret is not starting a family with you, not experiencing the joy of raising a child together." They were rescued, of course, their brush with mortality becoming just another tale to tell. But the experience had crystallized something for both of them. Life was precious and unpredictable. Why waste it on fear and hesitation? 9 months later, Zoe gave birth to their daughter, Cordelia, named after the heart-shaped sea squirt that had been the subject of their first. Marcus, at 63, embraced fatherhood with a vigor that belied his years. He was a constant presence, from midnight feedings to first steps, his love for Cordelia matched only by his ongoing adoration for Zoe. Balancing parenthood with their demanding careers proved challenging, but Zoe and Marcus approached it as they did everything else, as a team. They took turns accompanying each other on research expeditions, set up a nursery adjacent to their shared office at the Marine Institute, and found ways to integrate their family life with their professional passions. Cordelia grew up surrounded by the wonders of marine biology, her earliest memories filled with the salty tang of sea air and the gentle lapping of waves. By the time she was 5, she could name more species of fish than most adults, her precocious intelligence a perfect blend of her parents' gifts. As Cordelia flourished, so too did Zoe and Marcus's relationship. The added dimension of parenthood deepened their bond, their shared love for their daughter amplifying the connection they'd always felt. Yes, there were moments of stress and exhaustion, arguments over parenting styles and work-life balance. But through it all, their fundamental partnership remained unshakable. It wasn't until Cordelia started school that they faced their first real crisis. The other parents, upon learning of Marcus's age, began to whisper. Was it fair to Cordelia, they wondered, to have a father old enough to be her grandfather? The gossip reached a fever pitch when Marcus suffered a minor heart attack at a school event, collapsing during Cordelia's dance recital. The weeks that followed were some of the darkest of Zoe's life. As Marcus recovered in the hospital, she found herself plagued by doubts. Had they been selfish in starting a family so late in Marcus's life? Was she strong enough to potentially raise Cordelia alone if something happened to him? It was Cordelia herself who pulled Zoe out of her spiral of fear. "Mommy," she said one night as Zoe tucked her into bed, "is Daddy going to die?" The question, asked with such innocent directness, nearly broke Zoe's heart. But as she looked into her daughter's eyes, so like Marcus's in their depth and intelligence, she found the strength to answer honestly. "Sweetheart, everyone dies eventually," she said gently. "But your daddy is strong and healthy, and the doctors are taking very good care of him. He's going to do everything he can to be here with us for a long, long time." Cordelia nodded solemnly, then broke into a wide smile. "Good," she said, "because I need him to teach me how to scuba dive when I'm bigger." He promised. The simple faith of a child, the unshakable belief that her father would keep his promises, was a powerful reminder to Zoe of why they had chosen this path. Love in all its forms was worth the risk of heartbreak. When Marcus was released from the hospital, it was with a renewed zest for life. He threw himself into a heart-healthy lifestyle with the same passion he applied to his research, dragging Zoe and Cordelia along for early morning swims and weekend hikes. Their family unit grew stronger than ever, buoyed by the realization of how precious their time together truly was. They began taking more family-oriented research trips, exploring tide pools in Australia and studying dolphin pods in Hawaii. Cordelia's education became a blend of traditional schooling and hands-on marine biology lessons, her childhood a unique fusion of academia and adventure. As the years passed, Zoe and Marcus's work continued to evolve. They shifted their focus more towards conservation, using their research to advocate for marine protected areas and sustainable fishing practices. Their age difference, once such a source of controversy, became almost irrelevant in the face of their shared passion and accumulated wisdom. Zoe, now in her 40s, found herself increasingly taking the lead in their joint projects, her confidence and expertise growing with each passing year. Marcus, while still actively involved in research, began to step back slightly, focusing more on mentoring the next generation of marine biologists, Cordelia included. Their relationship, too, continued to deepen and change. The fiery passion of their early years had mellowed into a warm, abiding love, no less intense for its familiarity. They still challenged each other intellectually, still found new things to discover about each other, even after decades together. But there was also a comfort in their connection, a sense of home that transcended physical location. On the eve of Marcus's 75th birthday, as they stood together on the deck of their research vessel watching a pod of whales breach in the distance, Zoe was struck by a powerful wave of emotion. She thought back to that stormy night so many years ago when she'd first allowed herself to acknowledge her feelings for Marcus. How scared she'd been then, how unsure of the path ahead. "Penny for your thoughts, Dr. Morgan." Marcus's voice, still strong despite the years, broke through her reverie. He smiled down at her, the laugh lines around his eyes deepening with affection. Zoe leaned into him, marveling at how perfectly they still fit together after all this time. "Just thinking about how glad I am that I took a chance on us," she said softly. That I didn't let fear or other people's opinions hold me back from the greatest adventure of my life. Marcus pressed a kiss to her temple, his arm tightening around her waist. I thank my lucky stars every day that you did, he murmured. You and Cordelia. You've given my life more meaning and joy than I ever thought possible. As if summoned by her name, their daughter appeared on deck, her long hair whipping in the sea breeze. At 16, Cordelia was a perfect blend of her parents, Zoe's determination and Marcus's thoughtful nature, with a passion for marine life that matched them both. Mom, Dad, come quick, she called excitedly. The ROV just sent back some amazing footage of a giant squid. As they followed Cordelia below deck, Zoe and Marcus exchanged a look of shared pride and love. This was the life they had built together. A family bonded not just by blood, but by a shared passion for discovery, for pushing the boundaries of knowledge, for protecting the wonders of the ocean. Their love story might not have followed a conventional path, but it had led them to a place of deep fulfillment and purpose. Together, they had navigated the unpredictable currents of life, weathered storms both literal and metaphorical, and emerged stronger for every challenge they'd faced. As they gathered around the monitor, exclaiming over the rare footage with Cordelia and the rest of their research team, Zoe felt a profound sense of gratitude wash over her. This was her family, her life's work, her greatest love, all intertwined in a tapestry more beautiful and complex than she could have ever imagined. Whatever the future held, whatever new discoveries or challenges lay ahead, Zoe knew that she and Marcus would face them as they always had together, their love a constant anchor in the ever-changing tides of life.